Hello, this is Judd Vance with Bonding with Board Games. Today I'm here to do a review on Patton's Vanguard, the Battle of Arracourt, 1944. The game is designed by Mike Ranella, artwork by Charles Keebler, co-published by Take Aim Designs, a company Mike co-formed himself, and Revolution Games. Let's take a look inside and see what it's about. Alrighty, here is a look at the game. First I'm going to talk about the map. You have all these different areas in here. I'm going to zoom in on one of them. You can see it's numbered, number 14. Plus 2 is a defensive modifier you're going to gain if you're defending in that area. And then ones that have victory points will have a victory point value loaded with them. You see some of these lines on here. I'm going to back up a little bit. The white dotted lines are your normal crossings. Up here you see a blue line. That is a water boundary. It's like a river. Only infantry can cross it without a bridge. Takes all of their movement, so you get to move one area with that. You can cross bridges. Advanced rule, and it's worth using, is maximum of 5 in an assault impulse. I'll talk about in a second. And then the last type is down here at the bottom. You can see these dotted lines. This is a canal. No unit at all may cross it without a bridge. Those are your three types. Your units, you have an infantry unit. Bring it in here. It has a standard NATO infantry symbol. Attack, defense, and movement. Units with, then you have armor units, lots of armor units in this game, and then artillery, engineers, and I thought there was another type I'm probably blanking out on now. But anyways, I set the game up for how it is in the beginning. Here's how a normal turn would work in this game. First turn, you start off, the Germans start each turn. You go back and forth in a series of impulses. You can see this impulse track numbered 1 through 12. Germans go, Americans go. You'll check to see if the turn ends. If not, you go to the next impulse. And you keep doing that until, I'll talk about it here in a second. So the Germans go. Now when the Germans go, it's their impulse. You can do one of, I believe it's 5 things. Sorry, I've been looking at a lot of very impulse games here, so I'm a little confused on. Okay, the first one you can do is a regroup. Now a regroup, and I should have spoke of this first, these areas here, the way the control works is either they're American controlled or German controlled. And they start the game off, I got these markers in here for German controlled, and also ones that start with red numbers are German controlled. It's pretty easy. And the others are American controlled. Now if a German moves into an American controlled area, it is called contested. It is still American controlled. The only way to flip control is to only have your units in that. Okay? And then if there's no units in it, it's called vacant. And if it's vacant and under your control, it's free. So it's really all about control and if there's any units in it. So you get these different options you can do. One of them is obvious, the pass. And if both players pass, turn ends. That doesn't hardly ever happen. The next is called a regroup, and that is like reforming all of your units on your side. What that means is every unit on the map, not in a contested area, I think I got that right, can move one area. However, it can only move into a free area, meaning no enemy units in it, and it must be under your control, not the enemy. Think about it, just because there's units here, there might be a little patrol out here or something that's going to pew 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 at you, give you pause, where this is more of a realigning yourself on your side of the lines. So for instance, if I did a regroup, and this is the thing my opponent I'm playing with had made as his first move and his mistake, and I had to point it out, and it's not bad on him, it's just I want to be really clear on this. So if you play these games, tried to move this way, this is American controlled. You cannot move there. It has to be your area. So you could move here because that's German controlled. You could move, well, can't move there because there's a dotted line. But I mean, you could do that. You could move here, you could move here, that kind of stuff. Regroups are good ways to readjust your units, obviously. The next one is called the assault impulse. This is where you do your big movements into enemy territory. You don't have to attack. You can attack if you want, but it's a way to get your big movements going. You have these units with movements. All these German units are 5. Now there's a movement chart in here, and the beauty about these area impulse games is I think almost all of them are the same. 1 point to move into an area, 2 if there's an enemy unit adjacent. Some of them might be artillery in some of the old Civil War games, but generally 1 or 2 depending on enemy units. It costs 4 to move into an enemy area that has any full strength units in it. And if they're all flipped to their reduced sides, it's only 3. You memorize that really quickly. There is a chart in a table, and so it's not difficult. And something I'll talk about real quick is on Board Game Geek, under this game's file section, a fan made a fabulous, I should have wrote his name down and give him his credit, I'm sorry about that, made a fabulous player aid with pretty much everything you need on it. You should definitely check that out. Anyway, so you can move up to your unit. So in this case, what you could do is you pick an area and say, I'm going to activate this area. That's where the phrase area impulse comes from. So for instance, this guy could move here. That's 1 point. If he moves, he cannot move there because that's a blue line and would take all his movement. He's already used some. He could go here, and that would be 2, 3, because there's an enemy unit. 4, 5. He could not move into here because it'd be 1, 2, 3, take 4 more. That would be 7. He only has 5. So, and they can all scatter and go different directions. But as he moves here, I'd put a German marker there because now the area is free of enemy units and only he has units in there. So he could do that. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if he wanted. And then the next unit could come along here and move. So that is called the assault. If you were right here adjacent, you could spend your points. Or if I was well, no, I couldn't. Yeah, if I was right here, I could move them all in. I could assault this guy or move some of them in an assault. I couldn't start here because it'd be 1, 2, and then 4 more, 6. So he had to start here to assault into that area. Now, if the Americans were here, they could go 1, 2, and then 4 more for 6. That'd be a suicide mission, but he could. That's how the movement works in these games. You can scatter them. That's the assault. Okay? So, anyway, that's the next type. And those are what you're usually going to see, regroup and assaults. There are a few others that are unique to this game. You have these artillery units over here. And if the weather is not foggy, they can be used to shell the enemy. You can go adjacent area, or if there's enemy in your area. And there's rules on that, and I'll talk about that in a second. Another one is you can do a ranged attack. Your armor units can fire into an adjacent area. Cannot be foggy, though, to do this. And then the fifth kind, yeah, I was right, there's 5, is if the weather is clear, not foggy or overcast, it's clear, they can pull their air unit out, every impulse, on offense only, when it's their turn, or their impulse, I should say, place it into an area and attack. So those are your different types: assault, regroup, ranged attack, artillery, and pass. So let's talk about how the combat works in this. Let's say I have all these units here. Okay, I start my turn. We went back and forth. I did an assault. The Americans did, oh, they passed just for grins because they're dumb. Okay, and the next one, I want to assault into here. I would move them into there. And then let me move this in, zoom in on it so you can see it a little better. As the assaulter, the attacker player, I select a lead unit. Since all my units are 4, I'm going to pick an infantry unit. The Americans would then pick a lead unit. All there, remember, there's second numbers defense. So let's say they pick the infantry unit, which would be a good idea because I'll talk about it in a second. They each pick that. Now you're going to have an attack value and a defense value. Your attack value is going to be the attack value of your lead unit, 4. And then 1 for each unit joining in the attack. And let me check here real quick. Okay, if it's reduced unit, that's confused me. Some games are, some aren't, I believe. If it's reduced, it adds a half a point. Total will be rounded down. Okay, so this would be 4, 5, 6, 7. If you had a combined arm bonus, you would get another bonus point. Combined arm means there's different types of units: infantry, artillery, engineers. Here's an engineer unit. Ooh, there we go with the E on it. If you have these type of flak units, if you have any 3 of them in the battle, you get the combined arms bonus of +1. So just for grins, let me switch this to an engineer. Okay. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for combined arm bonus. If you're attacking, there are certain conditions you meet. You have leader markers over on the side. Let me bring one in, show you what it looks like. There you go. That +1. You can throw them in for a +1. And let me pull it. The leader markers are over on the side over there. You can use them in 1 battle per impulse. Theoretically, you could have multiple battles going on if you move your guys into assault different areas. Okay, his requirement, this is easy, it's color coded. If you got red units in there, you can use him. He's +1. The Americans have different leaders. Abrams can be used if armor's involved, and Dwight can be used if somebody with a 704 symbol is used. Here's a 704. You can see it up there. It says 704/C. But you can never use leaders in defense. It's only on offense. So yeah, they'll throw that leader in. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the combined bonus, 9 for the leader. Okay, then you're going to roll 2 dice and add it to that. The defense is 6 for the lead unit, 1 for every unit, no matter full side or reduced side. Every one of those is going to be added in. There is no combined arm bonus. It's pretty easy for that. And then you're going to add in the terrain of the area. So they're going to get +1. And then if the enemy crossed a river or a canal, they're going to get bonuses for that, which none of that happened. They went from here to here. So it would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with the leader versus 8, 6, 7, 8. So you take that, you'd roll 2d6, each side will, and add it to that. If the defender's combined total is higher, the attack is repulsed. All attacking units flip. If any of them are flipped, they're eliminated. Since he moved into this area, that creates a mandatory assault. They would have to retreat from whence they came. If they were already locked into combat in here, they started the impulse with both in here, they wouldn't have to retreat. Okay, if the numbers are the same, the attack and the defender's numbers are the same, then it's called a stalemate. The lead unit from each side flips to their weakened side. This is not like Storm over Arnhem where you activate units and flip. You only flip when you take damage. Okay? And if the attacker's number is greater than the defender's number, then the attacker wins. The lead unit will flip. If he's already flipped, he's eliminated. Then the difference in the points. So let's say my total was 15 against 10. Or no, let me do 12. 15 against 12. 3 points. They have to take 3 points of damage. The lead unit has to absorb the first one, so he's going to flip for 1 point. Now you got all kinds of options here. You can retreat, but you can only retreat a reduced unit. So this guy couldn't retreat without flipping. So it'd be 1, 2, 3. He's kind of stuck. He can flip, which means he could take some more beating if I don't rush some more guys in there. Or I could eliminate this guy. So 3 points to eliminate a full strength unit. 1, 2, 3. It's how you wish to spend the points. If I do that, this area is now contested. It's still American controlled. So if I did a regroup, I couldn't regroup guys into there. If I activate units, if you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to slide behind enemy lines, it doesn't work that way. If I'm locked into combat and I initiate this area for my next impulse, if you're in a contested area, your first area you leave must be free. You can't move into another contested area. It has to be clear of enemy units and be under your control. So none of this sneaking behind enemy lines. It's very, if you think about it, it's very combat driven, not maneuvering, Euro-ish, I'm going to slide around and be clever, or even Ameritrashy. This is very combat driven, and you're not going to just, oh, I fired a couple of shots, you know, I'm going to run around and do some stuff that wouldn't be realistic. You're going to have to control the area before you move on. So that's how combat works. The ranged attack is very similar. Let me move a couple of guys over here. The Americans want to initiate a ranged combat. Let me slide this map over. There you go. You can have armor units started. You pick a lead unit. So I'd take this guy because he's 7. And then 1 for every one that's joining in, half for reduced units, round down at the end. And that's going to be your attack value. That's it. No combined arms, no other infantry. They can't join in because think about it, they don't have enough range to get that far. You're going to do that, add 2 dice to it. The defender is going to take every armor unit in there, add 1, and then double the terrain. That's a little different. So this would be 1. This would really help if you're here and got a +4. So if you were doing this, it'd be 7, 8 against 1, 2. So wow, 8 to 2, 6. Wow, that's pretty severe. Roll 2 dice, and then they're going to take damage points. Same system. But if you are repulsed, you don't have to retreat, obviously, because you're in a different area. But if the defender's total is higher, you have to flip all of your units or eliminate any reduced ones. So that's how that works. Artillery is very similar. Artillery units can fire at an area if they're contested, or they can fire into an adjacent area. And other units that are also adjacent, other artilleries can fire. You pick a lead unit. In this case, I'd want the 7. Add 1 for every other artillery unit joining in. And you're going to roll that against the defender. And if I remember right, I believe it's just the defense of the area and not... I don't believe you're doubling it. So I'm going by memory here. It's been a couple weeks since I played this, and I played 2 other area impulse games, so I'm getting a little confused here. Anyways, but you do that, and then when you're done, win, lose, or draw. I mean, if they roll higher than you, nothing happens. You missed with your artillery. You have to flip them to their spent side. This is the only case where it's actually spent, kind of like the old storm over Arnhems. Anybody who participated has to do that. If they took damage in combat, they're already 1 point down. If he took a point to retreat and then another point, he's eliminated. It's only 2 instead of 3. And you'd roll against that. So the artillery is pretty wicked. Now, one more thing. Let me zoom out on this. Over here, this impulse track. Germans go first, then the Americans. When the Americans go, if they roll 2d6 during their turn, that also doubles as what's called a sunset roll. And that's like, let's say the Americans assault, and they roll whatever. You're going to compare it to this number over here. And if the number is less than the impulse, the turn ends. So obviously on turn 1, you can't roll less than 2d6. If you're on impulse 6, you roll a 4, it's over. And this is very important for any time you want to think of area impulse. This is true in all of them. If that roll is your sunset roll, do not make a special extra roll. What this represents is if you rolled low, you probably got beat in combat. And that represents things went very badly. It took you a long time to get organized, or even if you're on impulse 11 and rolled a 10 and 1, it took you longer to take it than you thought. Things didn't quite go as smoothly as hopeful, and as a result, a lot of time burned off the clock. The best way to think of this, I like to think of it, even though I don't believe it's an area impulse game that I know of, and I think I know them all, is Gettysburg, day 2. It took Longstreet about half the day or more. I think it was like almost 4 o'clock when he got everybody organized for that attack on Little Round Top. And then he lost. He got repulsed. So his total die roll would have been less the defenders and got repulsed off of Little Round Top. Things went very badly. The day ended. Think of it that way. That's how these capture it. When that happens, the turn ends. If the die roll is equal to the impulse, you're on impulse 4, you rolled a 4. It keeps going, but you're going to have a weather change. For the first 6 impulses in each turn, it's fog. And fog is bad because you cannot use ranged attacks, you cannot use American air power. But once you match that, it flips to overcast. If you get to impulse 6 and you haven't had a weather change, the fog burns off automatically. From that point on, if once it is at overcast, it can never go back to fog. Think about it. It's not like that movie, that John Carpenter movie, where the fog rolls in mysteriously. It goes from fog to overcast, and then overcast to clear. So you have to basically get to impulse 6 and match, or if you're at impulse, let's say impulse 3 and you match, it goes to overcast. You move to 4, and then you roll a 4, it goes to clear. If you go to 5 and do it again, it's going to go fluctuate between overcast and clear, overcast and clear. Pretty rare. It's pretty rare you're ever going to get to clear weather. But if you get to clear weather, Then you get to bring in the American air power, and that's what happened in that battle. They had a crease in the clouds. They're having this huge tank battle. They finally got a small crack in the clouds. Here come the air power and wipe the Germans out, send them on the run. If the weather's overcast, you are allowed to do ranged attacks and artillery strikes, but you cannot do the air power. So the weather's very important in this game. At the end of the turn, after the turn ends, and you go on and finish, if your sunset roll matches, you go on and finish out the taking your damage and calculating your results and all this, but then the turn ends. Then you go through, each side is going to get one replacement point. Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to all your American artillery that were flipped over and flip them back, because they weren't ever damaged, they were just spent. Flip them back. Now, you get 1 point, and what that lets you do is flip 2 units over from their weak side to their strong side. If you don't have 2 weakened units, sorry, you don't get to bank the points. Use them or lose them. You don't get to bring back eliminated units in this game like you can in some of them. And then there's one more thing to talk about in these. It's called the advantage marker. This is in all of these. As far as I know, I go back to Breakout Normandy. I never got Turning Point Stalingrad or the casino games. I've never seen those. I don't know where it started, but from Breakout Normandy on, all these games have the advantage. And I think even Storm over Arnhem had one. This is the friction of war. If you're sitting there looking at that combat I was describing, saying, wow, man, I could have this awesome attack against you and roll snake eyes, and you could roll boxcars. Yeah, that's a 1,296 to 1 chance of happening. Whatever. Dogs of war. That's what we wargamers live with. But if I'm +3, it's not that hard to lose that battle. And you're thinking, man, that's kind of swingy on the dice. The advantage marker helps nullify that. If you own the advantage marker, let me check on this real quick, because all these games are a little different in how they handle the advantage. In this game, you can do any combat reroll if you possess it. So if I attack you and roll crap, I got great odds, I'm +7 on you, and I roll bad and get -9 or whatever, and I'm repulsed, I can spin the advantage, give it to you, and re-roll it. Now, you can't use it until it's your impulse. So it's not like, oh, we're going to go back and forth and keep rolling until we can game of chicken. Okay? You can do any combat re-roll, but you got to take it at that point. You can also force a re-roll of anything else. There's reinforcement rolls in this. You could use it for that. And the last one is you can change the weather from fog to overcast just by spending it, which would be very beneficial to the Americans. They're the ones who benefit. As long as it's fogs, the Germans are really rocking, but when it starts changing, bad stuff starts happening. And then there's one more, and this is true in all these games. I said you get 1 replacement point at the end of the turn. The advantage marker will give you a second one. If you're really beat up and you need to flip 4 units in the worst type of way. But this goes back and forth, so that helps mitigate some of the wild swings you may see. And it's a kind of a game of chicken too. I don't know if I want to get that advantage marker up just yet, but you attack with a whole lot of units and get repulsed, and you have to flip them all. You're like, yeah, I'll spend it now. And then you're kind of grinding your teeth, and every time something happens to the Americans, you're afraid they're going to use it on you. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more use as I glance over the rules. If the game were to automatically end, the way that happens is on the first turn, the Germans start with 1 victory point. They have to take another victory point on turn 1, or they lose. And the guy who's playing a vassal, he tried to just come in and just attrition me, overwhelm me, and it didn't work. And you'll learn this really quick in these games. 5 markers to 2 isn't necessarily as good as what you're used to the old Avalon Hill. You're not going to see 5 to 1 odds. You might see a +2 on the die roll, or maybe even less because I got this great terrain advantage. It's a new way of thinking, and once you see it, you start to see it a lot easier. But he was going in and trying to override me and didn't work, failed to take any areas, game over. The second turn, you have to take at least two victory points. If you were to end the game and lose, you could spin the advantage marker and keep it going. You can't, as the Americans say, oh, I'm going to spend it to make you lose the game. It's only if you were to lose you could then make it happen. Otherwise, you play the 4 turns, and then you're going to add up victory points, and it's based on these areas and American losses. And only the Germans can get victory points in this. And if they have 10 victory points after the 4th turn, they win the game. If not, the Americans win. There's no draws, 9 points, American win. So you're going to see this big sweep around here on the sides, and the Americans are going to be too thin. Even when they bring in reinforcements, Germans are going to get a whole lot more pushing up from the south. And the Americans are going to get spread out real thin, and the Germans are going to try to hit these areas, these victory point areas, and it's going to be very hard to cover on this thing. And one other thing in this is this game gives you 2 entire scenarios. This whole campaign battle thing lasted about 10 days. This lets you cover the first 4 days of the battle, and then at this point, Patton thought that was all the Germans had. So he rushed a bunch of guys off, and units with asterisks are taken out of the game in the second one at a certain point, I believe, in the second scenario, to rush off to wherever they were heading off to. And then there's a whole nother scenario with different units in there. So yeah, you're getting basically like 2 games in one with this thing, 2 entirely, and it's not a game and a campaign scenario. It's first 4 days, last 4 days, play entirely differently. Something else I wanted to mention about this is what I always thought was cool. This game is co-produced, I said, by Take Aim Designs and Revolution Games. I think what a lot of this was I had talked to Mike Rennell about this before, and he liked, sometimes these designers will design games and they'll stay in the queue for years. And, hey, this is your baby, you want to get it out. And you want it to look a certain way. You don't want to be at the mercy of somebody else's artist. You spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this. You want it to look a certain way. So he formed his own company. He paid Charles Keebler, who, if you don't know him, you really should know him. The man's a legend, to do the artwork. He's done it in all 3 of these Take Aim games, Last Battle, Battle Axe, and this. Love his artwork. Very cool. Anyways, he pays him to do it, gets everything he likes. Now, he doesn't have a counterpuncher at home or ways to make paper maps or connections to distribution or whatever. So he gets in with Revolution, and they've got all those connections, and they've got some profit sharing. I don't understand how it works, and it's not really my business. And anyways, Revolution got their website, and they've been the big it game company for me lately. I got their 3 games. Stonewall Sword, that was a real sweet one. We did a ham tag. I mentioned Washington's Crossing, Gonzales, Celis, and all except Washington's Crossing are these folio games, so they ship cheap. And if you say, this was kind of neat, I'd like to try one out, sometimes you're a little worried about, I've spent a lot of money to try it out. These games run about $25 to $30. Sometimes you catch them on November sales around $20. Great way to pop in the system, and when you get into them, they store easy, and they all set up. I mean, I was over here, I set this thing up in less than 10 minutes while Bart was getting this stuff ready. They set up quickly, they play in about an hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe 1 hour, but on some of the quicker ones, but it's usually about 90 minutes. Is pretty plus or minus 30. Take down quickly, very simple rules. If I didn't show this rule book earlier, get a load of this. Easy format, 10 pages of rules on this thing, and then there's a couple with some advanced rules. And if you know one of these games, you know about 85% of the others, because they will share a lot of common mechanics, such as when you move into the enemy's area, you must assault if there's none of your units. So you'll see stuff like this. So yeah, these games hit a real sweet spot for me, and that's a little bit of background on that. And I really like it because something that annoys me, some designers, not naming names, we know who they are, make a game, move on to the next thing, don't ever support it. When Mike puts his money where his mouth is, which I really admire that, he supports the heck out of it. He supports games that he got a paycheck and got no royalties off the sales, like the old Battle Command series, Mercury, Market Garden stuff. He still supports that. I wrote him questions. He's answered them. But he's very active on Consim World and on BGG about answering all the questions. He provided, I told him about, it'd be nice to have some strategy tips, because I was really struggling with the Germans in this, trying to play this game like Battle Axe. No, that's not. So I was dropping a line on Facebook, and so then he went on BGG and put some strategy tips on there on how to play both sides. So very, very supportive of his game. So not very low risk, high reward on these things. Alrighty, we're back. Didn't really show this in the introduction. It's a folio game, which to me is great because it ships for really cheap and it's very, very easy to store. I took the cover off so we didn't get a big glare off of it. Earlier ham tag episode, I had said that I think the best of these area impulse games I had played, and I played a lot, and I had to think really, really hard about this, was Battle Axe. And then something clicked with this when I was playing it, and whoa, mind blown. And I'm sorry, I sound fickle as all get out, but I really think it's this one. I change week to week, but wow, this one really blew me. I mean, I was loving the game already, and then I watched that video that you see down in the description. Be sure to check that out, because when I saw that and I saw how these mechanics were making that happen, because I knew so little about this battle beforehand, that's like, whoa. And yeah, I'm just head over heels. This is May 4th today. May the 4th be with you, especially talking about Babylon 5 brothers out there. At the end of the year, if this is not the best new game, I make that thing in December, best new to you game. If this isn't the #1 game, I will be shocked. Because, I mean, this game hit me the way that few have. So, anyway, let's talk about this thing. What's so fabulous about it? Yeah, these area impulse games, there's two styles. I say this a lot in ham tag videos. One of them comes from the Storm over Arnhem series. And when you look at the map, it's part of a city. You move units, you flip them over, they're activated, you can't touch them for the end of turn, all your units are flipped, you're done. It takes a long time to play a turn, because I'm activating here, you activate, and it's very long. It's not bad, it's just long. This is an operational style, much farther out. The whole city's a spot within the area. And in these games, Storm over Arnhem, you can shoot adjacent areas because you're not that far. In these games, I can't think of a one where you can shoot into an adjacent area until now. And why? Because this was the big tank battle. This was the biggest tank battle on the Western Front until the Battle of the Bulge. So you got these big tank battles going on. So your artillery and your armor can fire. And these ranged attacks and artillery attacks, this is a new weapon in your arsenal I haven't got before in this. Love that part of it. Also, some artists, with music or whatever, there's just some of these guys you just feel like their whole career was leading up to this moment. Whether one, I like to say John Coltrane, my guy, I love Supreme, something like that. It's like this monster career was to this moment. Please don't argue with me, but he makes lots of great stuff. But it just felt to me, Mike Ranella, who I always considered the master of this, he didn't create the system, but he's made more games on it. It felt like his whole career was going up to this. You got leaders. They're not quite the same leader system as the Not War But Murder, but you can see the influence in it. The bridges from Breakout Normandy, you can see that part in it. Just different aspects from his different games. It's like it was all leading up, like he pulled all these cool ideas and just boom, put it all into one game and made it perfectly fit the battle that was going on. And it's a real simple package. I mean, not very many rules, and even that, here's one of the things about these games. If you know the system, and I'm teaching a guy this on Vassal now, we're in our second game, and he's went so crazy for this, he's been running out and buying a whole bunch of these games as a result. You get to playing a game, you come back a year later, you think you know it, you start pulling rules from others. Now, if you know this game, you know about 85% of Last Battle or Battle Axe or whatever. But it's those little nuances that can miss you up. So what I've been doing here is going, and these are on, by the time this video posts, these will all be out on Board Game Geek. I've been going through these games and taking what is unique to this game. Yes, mandatory assaults are common in all of these games, but stacking limits. This is 10, Battle Axe is 4. The stuff that's unique that you don't see in all the games, I put it there, printed it off, because I was doing this when I was doing Birth of a Legend. Set it there, I just pull it out, I read that, keep it by my side. I don't even need the rule book because I know the rest of the stuff that's common in all these games. So, been doing that to help push along. Also, I'm going to probably put out, I'm looking at this, a Vassal tutorial on how to play this, so if it's your first exposure to an area impulse game, you can kind of see it's really not difficult. And once you see it, makes sense, you're ready to fly into a lot of these games. But they're not just a system. I'm not going to name, I don't want to sound like I'm picking on systems, so I'm just not going to name it. Sometimes, if, you get these series games where you know the mechanics and you play them on difference. These are, the core system is, because the fundamentals are sound, you have to assault into an area, the defender's going to have the terrain advantage. But it's those little chrome rules that make them all unique. But the one about this is the whole gameplay is different. It's not a battle of attrition. Last battle is very much about attrition. Trying to take over an island, Japan is dug in and you got to pull them out of it. This one is all about maneuver. Not as nearly as many battles. When I was playing the guy in Vassal, he took Germany. First thing, he tried to move in and pound me, and boom, got repulsed. Then I hit him with a counterattack. The weather broke. I started shelling him. He had no prayer. I won on the first turn. He couldn't take a single area. This is not a game of attrition. We turned it around. First thing I started doing, surrounding him, because the Americans have the problem of, you feel like you got 11 holes and you're trying to plug them with 10 fingers. and you're constantly maneuvering around, and the Germans are looking for that weakness. At the same time, the Germans had such poor coordination in this battle, it reflects itself by that Americans' tactical advantage. So they're able to do more, maneuver more, and when the weather breaks, oh my goodness. I mean, once they start getting the artillery into it, wow. And then when the overcast becomes clear and here comes the air power, should that happen, may not happen, but if it does, it'll be just like the real battle where the Germans got decimated once that happened. Also, a lot of these games, one side's always pushing, one side's always defending. The thing I loved about Battle Axe was the first turn the British push hard, and then when the Panzers get released and here comes Rommel, they start pushing back. And it's a matter of can the British hold enough victory points as they add on each turn. That's the only one I've seen where it has constantly adding victory points each turn, where most of them are just add them up at the end. This is an add them up at the end. This one is, you see that back and forth go in the same turn. Here comes the Germans in the fog. You can't do range battles. You can't do artillery strikes. The airplanes are all grounded. First 6 impulses, possibly, if the weather doesn't break to overcast. Once you get the overcast, here comes the artillery. You got to watch out and kind of spread out. And then should that weather break to clear, you'll see the Germans immediately scatter, because when they pack in too tight, they get that huge advantage. So the Americans pound back during the turn. Then the next turn, it turns fog again for the next day. And here comes the Germans again, spreading out, trying to score those victory points and maneuver around and cut them off. So the game plays unlike anything. And I've never seen a game of such maneuver. The closest I've seen is Not War But Murder, where the Confederates don't have the numbers, but they got the terrain, and the Union's trying to run around them and spread them out and get across that river first. But this one is even much more, because once it digs in that one, then the maneuvering stops, and then it becomes attrition, where this is constantly maneuvering, look for the hole, and then bam, hit them. So it plays unlike any others, and I about did cartwheels, which is a scary sight for a dude of my age to try. I did not go through with that, which is why I'm here speaking. But anyways, I just loved it. Thought it was so fun. Then I saw the video and said, wow, I see what he's doing with this game. I knew so little about this battle, and it perfectly does. And something else about games, why I like this so much. A phrase I learned when I was hanging out with Mark Herman, he said, yeah, I'm name dropping. But no, it's something he said that kind of hit me in a big way, and I've used this phrase a lot. And he spoke what I thought. And it was a phrase, he said, a game that doesn't reveal itself on the first play. A lot of war gamers, I play it, I move on to the next thing, I move on, always looking for the next thing. I'm not that guy. I'm also not the card shark who plays 150 games of Twilight Struggle and memorizes all the interactions. But if I played Mike Granella in this, or his big play tester guys, the first time, I know area impulse games. I'm pretty solid at the system. He'd have wiped the floor with me, because this played so much different in how it worked on the whole overall operation. He'd have wiped the floor with me. The game shouldn't reveal its secret that fast. At the same time, I don't want to have to keep playing the game 20 times to get it. The second game, I should be able to sit there at the first game and say, yeah, I really screwed that up and that up and that up. The next time I go out, I give a lot better performance. Might win, might not win, but I'm sure going to give it better. By the third, I'm ready. I should be playing you and beating good players at this game. Maybe not Super Sharks if it's a card game or something, but I should be competitive. That's my sweet spot. And games that reveal themselves too quickly, I get bored with. Games that take too many games just to figure it out, that's not for me either. I don't have that patience or that dedication. I'm worn out. These kind of games have it. First time, you're probably going to get whipped by a good player, but you're going to learn, and then you're going to start getting better really quickly. And then when you're both at equal, then it's really cool when the breaks of the game. This bad thing happened, or that was a good move. And that is my sweet spot. The game only has, 12 pages of rules or something. I showed them on the camera how they're formatted. Real easy to read. I put out that other guide to help out. Easy games to pick up. That is my sweet spot. With a little bit of advanced rules to add that chrome touch. If you've never played an area impulse game, probably start with the basic. If you've played them, or you're any type of experienced war gamer, jump to the advanced. You'll see how much better it is and all the flavor it adds. So anyways, yeah, this thing, it's everything I wanted. Tanks, Patton, it's just all there, and it had so much more than what I'd played before. So that's my commentary on Patton's Vanguard.